introduced.
Minister, the cyberbully, they know no boundaries, able to reach from the classroom, the schoolyard, right up, follow a person back into their bedroom. And parents are very concerned for the safety of their children. And then when an issue is identified and brought to the attention of the Gardaí, they feel that they don't have the powers to pursue and that there's no specific offence. This was identified by Oireachtas Committee and recommendations made to act on it. I want to ask you, Minister, what action is being taken to address the issues and the concerns of people on cyberbullying?
The Government recognises the importance of integrated action across Government to address online safety, including cyberbullying. On the 11th of July this year, the Taoiseach launched the National Action Plan for Online Safety for 18-19. The Action Plan reflects a whole-of-government approach, contains 25 actions under 5 main goals. The actions are assigned to 6 different government departments for implementation: my own Department of Justice, as well as the Department of Communications, Climate Action and Environment, Department of Education and Skills, Department of Children and Youth Affairs, Department of Health, Department of Business. My department will continue to have responsibility for legislative changes to criminal law, liaison with An Garda Síochána on enforcement issues and disbursement of EU funds, as well as oversight of hotline.ie, which is the vehicle for reporting suspected illegal content encountered online. Many of the actions assigned specifically to my department under the plan are included under Goal 3, Stronger Protections. Includes legislating for new criminal offences, as recommended some time ago by the Law Reform Commission. In line with these responsibilities, the Office of Internet Safety has been incorporated into the Crime Directorate of my department, dealing with the criminal elements of online safety. It's important to note that the criminal law targets behaviour that is illegal, whether online or offline. Under existing legislation relating to harassment and prohibition to hatred, bullying, including cyberbullying, may constitute an offence depending on the circumstances in which it has taken place. Where harmful behaviour online does not involve criminality, the appropriate response is through education and awareness raising, as well as effective action on the part of internet companies. Such work has been taken forward by other departments and agencies as part of the action plan.
First of all, Minister, I want to acknowledge the action plan from earlier in the summer, setting out a range of actions. Though you didn't have had to wait for that action plan, because back as far as 2016 the Law Reform Commission had identified this gap where the Gardaí felt powerless to act when there was an issue brought to their attention. There was recommendations to update the Non-Fatal Offences Against the Person 97 Act with a stalking offence. And there was proposed legislation earlier this year on it. Also, Minister, that the Oireachtas Committee had made recommendations on this. I understand that there is some consideration being given to bringing forward legislation at some point, possibly next year. Time is slipping. Has that been identified as priority legislation, Minister? And when do you expect to have action on it? Your own colleague, Junior Minister for Health, felt that government weren't taking this issue seriously enough and that they were failing people on it. Would you agree, in view of the fact that this gap is still there after a number of years?
I do agree with the Deputy that this is a matter of great importance and it's one that does require a whole-of-government response. As I said, involving departments like the Department of Education, like the Department of Health, as mentioned by the Minister, also the Department of Children and Youth Affairs, my own department. In fact, I see a school in the public gallery, and I want to acknowledge what's been done in schools under the aegis of the Department of Education in relation to cyberbullying, in relation to awareness, the new resources that have been developed by Webwise, including Up to Us, My Selfie and the Wider World, and lockers. And I acknowledge what schools are doing in that regard, and I congratulate them and indeed encourage them to do more. From my own department, I wish to assure the Deputy that the Law Reform Commission made a number of key recommendations on criminal law matters, existing offences to be extended, a new offence of stalking, a new offence to address the taking and distribution of intimate images without consent, whether or not there's intent or likelihood to cause harm or distress. Officials in my department are working on this. I want to acknowledge the contribution of deputies, including deputies opposite and also Deputy Howland. I intend bringing forward legislation in order to ensure that we can reflect the needs of society in this regard.
Final supplementary.
Minister, the action plan it set out a range of issues, but didn't address the question of the Digital Safety Commissioner. This was to be a person who was going to be a watchdog, somebody who was going to work with social media platforms to pursue them, to live up to their expectations on it. Are you going to pursue for a Digital Safety Commissioner as recommended by the Oireachtas Committee? Also, Minister, I asked in relation to this legislation that you're bringing forward, is it identified as a priority legislation, or when do you expect to have that offering? Because we've already known that this gap is available for several years, and there was proposed legislation earlier this year on it. Minister, the cyberbully knows no boundary. They're able to pursue people right away from the schoolyard, right the way up into their bedroom, and it's very concerning both for people who are being bullied but also for their families and their parents. There needs to be action and urgency on it, and while we recognise there are different plans laid out, we need to see that followed through with direct action.
Final response from the Minister.
I agree with what Deputy Aindrias Moynihan has said, and I want to thank him for raising the matter with me this morning, because it is important. Can I say, in response on the matter of the Digital Safety Commissioner, the proposed legislation in relation to that appointment, which of course has been recommended by the Law Reform Commission in their report on harmful communications on digital safety. That issue has been dealt with by the Department of Communications. I haven't had an opportunity of discussing this matter with my colleague, the new Minister Richard Bruton, but I will do at an early date. And the second question in regard to legislation in my own department, let me assure you that officials in my department have been working closely with Deputy Brendan Howland with the intention of identifying and bringing forward some amendments to his private member's bill, which members will be aware was accepted earlier in the year at second stage. What we need to do now, and I welcome Deputy Moynihan's engagement, what we all need to do is to ensure that that bill can be as robust as possible, can be as effective as possible, and it's hoped that that bill can be set into law and enacted by the end of this year, which is a short time frame, but I wish to assure the Deputy of my interest.